Hey everybody, what's going on? It's Kyle Pullins here, and welcome to the Prospect Project podcast. And on this show, we are going to be covering all different kinds of strategies, tactics, training methods, pretty much anything and everything to help middle school and high school baseball players become college prospects and play baseball at whatever level they want to after that high school level. And in today's episode, we've got Mr. Aaron Cunningham on, who is down in the Houston area with the Hunter Pence Baseball Program, and he is their director of pitching and college recruitment, college placement. We've got a great episode on deck today. We're going to be talking pitching, we're going to be talking college recruiting, some showcase and travel baseball stuff, different recruiting strategies, and really how guys can get seen and stand out, and kind of what the process is like for players getting ready to go into college and get recruited, get more looks, all that good kind of stuff. So I'm going to be sharing a lot of different training videos and future podcast episodes around these different topics. But as we get this launched and going, I want you guys to comment below on this video with the types of questions that you have and let us know, hey, kind of where you're at as a player, or if you're a parent or a coach coming in looking for tips and tricks for your kids. By all means, let us know what's going on so we can better create content to help you guys reach your goals. So without further ado, let's get into this interview with Aaron. We'll see you inside.
Man, I'm excited to
Yes,
be
sir.
chatting with you today. I love your Facebook group there. You've got tons of great posts in there. Just seems like almost every day it's like something that's just a little outside. I don't want to say outside of the norm, but a bit more unique than, other groups or other accounts and things like that. So getting here to kind of chat baseball with you and, this time of year, yesterday I was just chatting with a guy who's, headed off on Sunday to college, and he's talking about these dogs he was playing in the summer league, and he's like, man, I'm just way undersized compared to these guys. And that's how I was going into college. And you probably, see this a lot of these high school guys going off to college just really aren't like physically ready for that level of baseball. With the guys that you're working with, obviously the Hunter Pence Academy, big program, big name behind it and everything like that. What do you guys feel like you do a little bit differently to help get these guys ready for college ball?
Yeah, appreciate the kind words. It's always hard because every kid's so different. Every kid does need a little something different. And I think you're hitting the nail on the head from the physicality standpoint. I mean, there's not a kid really in high school that is as far along in terms of how strong he is, how athletic he is, all that kind of stuff as the kids are going to be competing with in college. So, I think it all starts first of all with honest, open conversations about, what's realistic for them if they want to get to a certain level, what it's going to take. Everybody wants to play at A&M or Texas or LSU, but that's just not realistic too. So, you got to be able to kind of have those conversations and kind of guide people, um, in a way that you kind of have to be very very hyper individualized, right? I mean, there's not really one recruitment that I've been a part of that has ever been identical to another. We've sent a lot of kids to a lot of the same schools, but how those situations pan out, how those recruitments go, and everything are just really really different. So I think key is number one is make sure that you understand that first of all is that each kid is very different. They've got strengths, they've got weaknesses, and trying to get them to find a fit is so important. you know um, the easiest kids to help in the process are the kids that end up going to A&M or Texas. They don't really probably need a whole lot of help in general because they're usually so good that even somebody that doesn't know the game could come out to the park and say, hey, that's the best player on the field, right? So I think it's usually it's the kids that are going to junior colleges, Division II, Division III. Those are the ones that typically need the most guidance, the most help. Usually are the toughest conversations because they do need a lot of good advice, and sometimes telling somebody what they need isn't always the easiest thing to do. But we found over the years that the more that you do that, the better the situation ends up being for every kid.
Yeah, and that's obviously baseball being to me, it's the most individual team sport that it is out there. And, you're going to have so many guys coming in, so many different backgrounds, different families, different cultures, and things like that, different upbringing. So the mindset is obviously huge in the game of baseball, but to me, it extends outside of baseball from all those pieces, that I just mentioned. There is their way of thinking comes from their family, comes from their social circles, and that side of things. With Houston baseball, I mean, that's, a huge hub for baseball across the country, probably, top 2 to 3 places for college baseball guys coming out of there and getting to pro ball and things like that. With the Hunter Pence program, you guys are, traveling around, getting national programs, I imagine, and things like that. What do you notice from Houston baseball versus kind of, we'll say, the rest of the world as far as kind of the mentality around baseball and how they approach the game and their training, that side of things?
Yeah, great question. Man, I'll put Houston up against any area in the country when it comes to just talent. You see it when you just play locally. We're fortunate down here that we can just drive out to Tomball or one of the little local areas here and play in tournaments. And we sometimes we'll leave to go play nationally, and it's like, golly, man, we could have just stayed home and seen better competition. Now, obviously, there are events that you need to travel to that are outstanding, and obviously Dallas is got phenomenal baseball. Right there with Houston. I mean, Houston and Dallas, it's almost like you almost lump them into one, and you've got probably one of the most talent-rich areas in the whole world for baseball. Obviously, Southern California's got great baseball. Florida, Georgia have great baseball. I mean, there's great baseball everywhere. But there's a recruiting coordinator a few years ago that told me, man, I can come down to Houston, shake a tree, and find about 100 kids that are 85 to 88 on the mound. And there's very few places in the country that happens. So we're blessed. I think it makes the players down here better because, it's the old scripture, iron sharpens iron. When you're constantly playing against high level competition, it's gonna make you a lot better. And I've got friends and family in other parts of the country that are in much uh, lesser baseball markets, and it's for them. It's really hard to find that competition, and in a lot of cases, they have to spend the whole summer on the road, living in hotels just to be able to see it. So for us, we're just so blessed to be in the Houston area where we travel. We try not to travel too much so that we're not breaking everybody's wallet, but we travel. But we also understand we're blessed. Why not take advantage of the ability to drive 20 minutes down the road and see the competition that most people are traveling all over the world for? So yeah, we love it. Like I said, we still like to travel. I think that experience is great for kids, learning how to play away from your comfort zone, playing against, sometimes you see the same teams a lot when you just stay local. So sometimes it's fun to get out there, play kids you've never seen before. And it's a lot of fun, a lot of experience. Some of it doesn't always have to be about getting recruited or so. Some of it's just, hey man, this is a great opportunity, so much fun, right? Like the kids are going to remember this the rest of their life. Let's go do it. But yeah, I mean, to your core of your question, it's really great living in an area where there's just so much talent.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, looking at obviously, it might have been in your group or there's several other, the Showcase and College Baseball group. They were definitely talking about it back when, the College World Series was in full swing. But they're just big fuss. Everybody wants, throw 90 miles an hour as a pitcher, especially, is kind of the big thing. But they're showing all these top arms at some of these top programs, and you're looking at guys who are just walking, walk rates are high, ERAs are high, and some of this stuff when you're seeing guys who are competing and helping teams get to, the elite level in college baseball. And these guys are upper 80s to low 90s, great movement, command, and different stuff. So how, this is kind of transitioning to these high school guys, getting them ready for college. Obviously, you've got like 4 years to like truly develop, right? A lot of guys think I've got to be at 90 miles an hour minimum as a freshman going in, kind of thing. But what are some, especially on the pitching piece, some kind of baseline metrics outside of just pure velocity that guys should have or really be striving for and training for if they're trying to be a college baseball player?
Yeah, man. I love this topic because I do think, when I flip on a college baseball game, a lot of times it's a tough watch, because you got guys with outstanding stuff, that are throwing hard, but it's taking 25, 30 pitches an inning to get through 3 outs. And um, it's for me, I think that what has caused the velocity craze, a lot of it is these kids are being told at 14 and 15 years old that, hey, if you want to play D1, you got to throw 90. So the training for them is going to go very much into a hyper focus on, okay, like, I'll worry about throwing strikes later. Let me just try to get to these baseline numbers so that my dream schools will consider me for their roster. Um, and I think that's created, a little bit of an issue at the college level because, and I totally get where the recruiting coordinators and coaches are coming from at that level. It's hard to go out on the road and recruit a tournament and come back to your head coach and say, hey, I got this kid that's 82, 84. He can really pitch. The head coach is going to say, okay, dude, what have you been doing all weekend, right? It's a lot easier to walk into his office and say, hey, got a kid out in Tomball that's 90, 92, and has some projection to him. Okay, hey, that's more attractive. But a lot of times that kid can't pitch. Not to say every kid that throws hard can't pitch. That's not true. We've got a lot of kids that throw hard and can pitch and are outstanding. But I think it's more the mentality that has been created by this mindset that if you want to play in college, you have to throw X amount out of miles an hour. And so I think that's it for me. As a pitching guy, um, I'm the kind of guy that I love guys that can get outs, that throw zeros, that are efficient, that get us back in the dugout quickly. I'm a believer, the longer I've done this, that it's probably easier to get kids to throw hard than it is to get kids to really command and spin the ball. Um, the information's out there. We know how to develop bodies and athletes to be more explosive and move better and throw harder. So to me, if I was recruiting, junior college or mid-major Division I baseball, where you're probably not getting that 92 to 95 mile an hour arm out of high school. I'm looking for the dude that's 83 to 86 that can really spin it and pitch his butt off and knows how to hold runners and really knows how to manipulate the baseball and get, when he needs a ground ball, get a ground ball, and I'll bring him in and, hey, look, we'll get 3 or 4 miles an hour on you with what we know how to do, which is develop a body to move better. But we're still kind of in that pattern where everybody's still really fascinated when 90 plus pops up. And man, I'm not going to act like I'm not either. I mean, when you see a kid throwing hard, it's always intriguing. As a pitcher myself, I wanted to throw harder. And even some of the guys I played with that threw as hard as anybody in the world. You talk to Aroldis Chapman, I bet he wants to hit 107. I mean, everybody wants to always throw harder. But I think at the end of the day, I think it's a very deep question that you're asking because I think it starts at a very young age, and even now down to the youth level, kids are trying out for really good teams and not making that team because, hey, Johnny throws strikes, but right now, he's not throwing hard enough. So it almost starts at way too early of an age where kids are being say, hey, like, that's good, but it doesn't have enough velo. And so then if you're in that situation, what are you gonna do? You're gonna go train for velo. And a lot of times they hyper focus so much on that they forget, well, you might want to learn how to get people out, throw strikes, hold runners. So you see a lot of game management issues. You see a lot of kids that have pitch count issues and consistency problems. And I think it all is rooted in it's rooted in the right place because these kids just want to play baseball for as long as they possibly can. But sometimes that can create its own set of problems.
Oh, 100%. And I'm thinking back. I'll have to kind of dig it up and maybe like send it to you later. But it's not the first time I've seen it, especially in that showcasing college baseball group where a parent comes in and they're talking about same thing. Hey, my kid's not at 90. He's throwing like mid 80s. He's got good stuff. He's getting outs, but my guy's just like not getting looks. And if you're seeing that kind of stuff, you're hearing that kind of stuff from parents, what other factors outside of just pure velocity is it that typically you feel like obviously it's a case by case thing, right? And that kind of stuff, but is it more of like maybe this guy's just 20 pounds undersized and he's got a guy that even same velocity, same stuff is already bigger, already, stronger than that kid? Like what other kinds of things would you start to
Yeah.
look at for that to say, hey, this isn't, you can get out, you can pitch at this level. That's not why you're not getting the looks or you're not getting, that kind of attention.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things play into it. I mean, projection is big, right? So if you've got, a body that projects to produce more energy, more velocity, more stuff, that can help, right? So we all love tall pitchers because we think we can teach them to create leverage and get them stronger and start to create that IVB and um, and then obviously, look, left-handers are lefties, man. That one, lefties never go out of style, and I think if you've got a child and they're left-handed and you don't have them working on pitching, that's a mistake. Because still the lefties that are low 80s lefties that can pitch, I mean, colleges are still lining up for those. It's the right-handers, man. There's just lefties don't have a lot of advantages in this world, but one of them they do have is on the mound, and the righties are, it plays out to about like the same percentages in the whole world. Only about 13% of the world is left-handed, and that's about the same in baseball. So if you're a lefty, you're only really competing against 13% of pitchers out there, because most colleges will recruit, okay, we're looking for 2 or 3 left-handed pitchers in this class, right? So it's almost like a right-handed pitcher and a left-handed pitcher are almost viewed as different positions in a lot of ways. But for the right-handers, okay, if there's only 13% that are left-handed, that means 87% of pitchers out there are right-handed. So then, how do you differentiate from the herd? Can you be deceptive, right? Can you have a funky arm action that really gives hitters timing issues? Can you pitch backwards? Do you create issues for hitters that are unique? The right-handers that have a hard time typically, in my experience, are the stock right-handers. You're straight over the top right-handers that have a very conventional delivery, a very conventional arm slot. They throw a fastball, a breaking ball, and a changeup, and there's not much to that. Those are the guys that I think are right now having a hard time because, like I said earlier, with that coach telling me, you can shake a tree and find a bunch of kids in Houston that throw 85 to 88. That's a problem though when it comes to recruiting, because there's so many of them. So then you got to separate yourself with the ability to be efficient. Your ability to really just get outs, be consistent. Those are things that I think still travel. I think that in a lot of cases, especially you see it on the circuit where a coach looks up or a player looks up and he sees a bunch of schools back there. He starts over pitching instead of just being himself. And then all of a sudden he's presenting himself in a bad way. He might hit a mile an hour or two better because he's reaching back every time and maxing out. But to a college coach, he's watching you, take 20 pitches to get through an inning. He's watching you get into deep counts every single hitter. And those things don't translate very well to the next level. They want to see efficient outs. They want to see guys that are throwing 2 out of the first 3 pitches for strikes, keeping the pitch count to where they're throwing 12, 13 pitches an inning. And then, they want to see you get some whiffs, because if you're not getting a lot of swing and miss in high school, those types of things don't usually translate very well, right? If you're a high contact guy in high school, the guys in college are a lot stronger and can hit it a lot harder, and that contact tends to create damage. So, those are the areas I'd say that, like, if you're trying to still look at areas to separate yourself, then and still being able to pitch backwards, you got to spin to win in college with metal bats. You've got to really be able to throw 3-2 breaking ball. You've got to be able to throw a change up in a fastball count. All that kind of stuff is really, really important. And when these guys are standing back there, those are the things that pop to them. At their level, they see 90 miles an hour a lot. That doesn't, to a lot of common folk, 90 grabs attention. But if you're a college coach, you see 90 a lot. That's not going to blow your socks off. There needs to be something else too for them to really look at you and say, okay, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, and I know coaches love to use the Greg Maddux analogy. Obviously, I'm a big Giants fan, so Logan Webb, comes to mind. One of his interviews recently, he was talking about even he wants, still trains in the off season to try to get another, mile or two on his fastball. But one of his, I mean, he's been, him and Blake Snell have been so hot since the All-Star break, and one of his last starts, I was like, man, he's bringing it today, and he hit like 95. Most of the time he's like 92, 93 with just crazy sink and pairing it with his changeup and that side of things, and that kind of leaded me into the pitch tunneling piece. I think for a lot of guys that I'm seeing in the high school level, until you probably get to at least 80, but probably like 85, I feel like maybe the pitch tunneling isn't as valuable as it could be, just because they're still getting some drop on their fastballs and they're not just firm and able to have as much spin and that side of things. But kind of, can you talk a little bit about what, pitch tunneling is like, and kind of dive into maybe some, pitch design type stuff? What pairs well together, and what kinds of pitches should guys be looking at outside of just, pure fastball and changeup?
Yeah, man, I love it. So pitch tunneling, if you can imagine tunnels, right? And you throw your fastball and let's just say, for an easy way of thinking of it, like a fastball release from your hand straight down the middle to the catcher creates a tunnel, right? When you create this tunnel, now all of a sudden everything you're throwing off of that tunnel is going to be very deceptive to a hitter. So when your fastball is coming here, you want your curveball to come down the same tunnel and then break late off of that fastball tunnel. That's a pretty simple way of thinking of it, obviously, but it's really showing hitters the ball coming into the same areas over and over, right? And when you listen to major league hitters talk, boy, they love when they see what they call bump. In other words, when that breaking ball bumps above the fastball tunnel, it's easy for them to see that, and they can really do damage or lay off of it. And so you want everything to kind of fly off tunnels. When it comes to the how you pair pitches and stuff like that, obviously every pitcher is going to be different, and that's where the tech that we have now with TrackMans and Rapsodos and Hawkeyes and all that kind of stuff are awesome, because it can kind of help you with your pitch design and also help you with how you maybe should attack. If you're a high spin rate four-seam fastball pitcher, you need to live at the top of the strike zone, even above it a little bit. The reason for this is what's called the Magnus effect. It's basically the baseball. Our eyes account for gravity in every single thing that we do in life. It's subconscious. We don't even realize that we do it, but we do. And so when we have a baseball traveling at us, our eyes account for the ball being affected by gravity. And so our barrel is going to go to that when we're playing catch. That's how we catch the ball. It's a very innate thing with eye-hand coordination. It's really fascinating. But when you have a high enough spin rate fastball, the baseball traveling between your release and the strike zone, the catcher's mitt, if it's high enough spin, which is thought to be, about 2,350 RPMs or higher, gravity's not going to affect that baseball in that short of a flight plan. So it's a very deceptive fastball. And so you'll see hitters swing underneath it a lot, right? And now what's being taught at the higher levels is if you're facing a high spin guy, you really want to try to take your barrel over the top of the ball, because the ball is actually going to be where you don't think it is, right? So in the Magnus effect, most people see the ball here, right? And it's really here, right? So the ball is in two different places. It's an optical illusion. So if you're a high spin rate fastball guy, you need to live in the top of the strike zone. You're going to get a ton of whiffs at the top of the zone. Conversely, you're going to get hammered at the bottom because they're going to see the ball down there and they're going to be able to really get down through the ball and create backspin. So, a lot of guys struggle with how they throw their fastball and where they throw it to because they don't have that information to know that. If you're a low spin rate guy, right, and velocity doesn't always correlate with spin. There's guys that throw 82 that fastball spins 2,600 RPMs. There's guys that throw 98 that spin it at like 1,900 to 2,000. So it's not a velocity thing. But if you're a low spin rate guy, you need to live at the bottom of the strike zone and be down there. If you're a high spin rate guy, you got to live up. So knowing that, obviously your secondary pitches are all going to really have their effect based off of your fastball. That's why the fastball is the GOAT when it comes to pitches. You have to have one. You have to be able to command it. If you don't, you're going to really hit your head on a ceiling at some point when you start to face certain level of hitter. But if you're a high spin guy, typically you want to throw more four seam at the top of the zone and really let that fastball explode through the top at high spin. And then you want to really try to throw something that's really tight off of that, right? Something that with tight top spin, so hitters are never really seeing seams. There's all sorts of pitch design out there now. You've got curveballs and sliders. The variation that people are calling the sweepers. And I kind of feel like they all fall under the breaking ball family. Again, you go into and you find which ones are the most effective that are going to play off the type of fastball you have. If you're a low spin guy, you can rip a lot more two seam at the bottom. Learn to throw the change up and the splange off of that. More of a bullet spinning, that gyro spinning type slider that can almost come off cutterish. I think you hear it called like a slutter now a lot, that really high velocity. It's got a little more action than a cutter, but it's a little less action than a slider, so there's the beauty is now is that we through technology, we can really help kids find what they can do best. And one of the most important things for me when I work with young pitchers is getting them to understand you pitch to your strengths. Don't worry about the hitter. Pitch to your strengths. And especially at the amateur levels, we don't have enough data on hitters to really know, oh, hey, like if you throw a 1-2 fastball to this quadrant of the strike zone, they bat 120. Yeah, in the big leagues, they have that information, and those guys can really make it difficult. But at the amateur level, even at the college level, we don't really have that much data on hitters. And so we kind of have to just more pitch to our strengths, pitch to what you're good at, pitch to your ability. Let's not get beat on our fourth pitch in a big situation. Let's pitch to what, let's make hitters have to deal with us as opposed to us worrying about hitters. So when it comes to the pitch design though, I think it's all fine and dandy in the bullpen. It's beautiful. But the game is the ultimate test. I've seen a lot of kids that stuff like there's pitches that the machines tell you are legit, and then hitters are smacking all over the yard, and it's like, well, I'm not doing this to pass a machine test. I'm doing this so I can dominate real life baseball games here. So then you obviously, you take your pitch design and you got to take it out into the field, and you got to see if what you think is going to works. So it's a constant evolution, and especially with younger pitchers. Their bodies are still changing a lot. They're still getting a lot stronger. Their grip strength is going up, which is gonna impact the ability to spin the ball or how the ball spins out of your hand, and so it's I always tell people Major League Baseball is almost a different sport, just because those guys, they know who they are. They're fully grown men. Not a whole lot about them is really ever going to change a lot. Yes, they can still develop to a degree, but nothing like what's happening with the amateur pitchers. And so, you've just got to constantly be testing, constantly be open to making adjustments, and really just kind of, again, if you're having success in the game, don't question that. If hey, I'm pretty much throwing shutout and all I'm doing is fastball changeup. Okay, well, let's do that. And until the hitters tell us we need to do more, let's not, hey, keep it simple. KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. If you're throwing up zeros and dominating baseball games, everything you're doing is right. So just stay with it. And then conversely, you might think everything that you're doing is what you want, but if you're struggling through baseball games, hey, let's not be too stubborn here to not go ahead and make some adjustments too.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of that with some of the guys I'm working with up here in Dallas, is they're going from maybe kind of some of the outskirt schools, and they're just able to get by with like a two pitch mix, just good fastball, kind of blowing it by guys, and then they get on the summer ball circuit, and okay, these guys can handle that kind of stuff, and they've got to be able to mix it up a little bit more than before. So now they've kind of almost got to do a little 180 compared to where they were at. And, it's just the adjustment piece, every level, every age you're going up, it's a new level, new adjustment, almost a new game, essentially, that these guys have to be able to adapt to. Before we kind of go to the, the showcase piece, I know this is, the time of year where prospect camps and showcase and things like that are starting to ramp up, and guys are trying to get looks for college. Going back to the kind of pitch selection, and with your background working with Tom House and Ron Wolforth and these guys, one of the big questions, always a controversy, when is it safe to start throwing the curveball, throwing the breaking ball, arm injuries and that side of things. What do you say to parents out there who are listening, who, all the kids, whether they, they've learned it properly or not, or messing around throwing breaking balls and stuff with their guys at practice, trying to see who's got the best one and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
when is it safe, and is there, a certain percentage of pitches in a game that is like, okay, we're getting throwing too many of those, relying on that too much, getting a little too heavy there.
Yeah, that another great question. For me, I think when it comes to when is it safe to start is when I think the movement patterns, how your body's moving is a very efficient and safe thing. You mentioned Wolforth. He used to always say there's 9-year-olds that are ready to throw curveballs, and there's 19-year-olds that are not. And his point in that is that if your body is not moving in a safe and efficient way, age really is not what is important. It's how are you moving. Now, with that said, I also know that he, myself, and others are all really big advocates of, the problem I think with kids, even if they're throwing the curveball safely at too young of an age, is that it really becomes kind of a crutch. And when you go and you watch a lot of youth baseball, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, kids that have a curveball, typically, if they can throw it and throw it effectively, are usually going to be, kicking butt and taking names, just because a lot of the kids are just not comfortable hitting those pitches. And but then you eventually reach a level, and especially, I'm typically on the 17 and 18 youth circuit every summer. Those guys don't struggle with guys if all they've got is a curveball and that's their crutch. They're going to hammer it, they're going to lay off of it, and they're going to really punish you. So to me, I think at the younger ages, it's really it's really about learning how to pitch off of your fastball. Learning, and I get it. Some kids, they're floating it in there still. You know, you still got to be able to understand that the odds are in our favor as pitchers. When I throw it over the plate, if a team hits 300 off me, that means only 3 out of 10 guys are getting a hit. It's hard to score runs like that. If I'm not walking people and I'm holding runners and our defense is making plays, it's hard. It's hard for the other offense. So we always, for me, I think when the curveball, the age discussion, I'm not a big fan of it at the younger ages, just because I think that most kids don't throw it fundamentally right. Most kids don't move well enough at those young ages. When puberty starts to come into the equation, you're talking about growth plates and things that are really fragile. And now there's no perfect answer. There's no scientific data that explains that, hey, your growth plate's going to break if you throw more curveballs than somebody else. Sometimes you can not throw a curveball at all and hurt it. But at the same time, I think, get with people that know what they're doing, and most of the time they will know when it's right with each kid. Like we talked earlier, everything has to be hyper individualized. You can't just have this cookie cutter philosophy about how you develop pitchers. I've worked, like I said, I've worked with kids that we were still learning how to just command a fastball when they're 16 years old. In our lessons, we won't even touch on secondary pitches. And then I've got kids that, man, it's like you see them come in at 12 and you're like, man, it's unbelievable how well you're moving and how talented you are. And, we can learn to safely do it, but I still encourage those kids to pitch off their fastball, develop a third pitch, which is usually got to be a changeup if you want to be a starter, because you need pitches that move different directions, that are off speed if you want to start at the higher levels. You can't just be fastball breaking ball. You're going to turn into a bullpen guy. You've got to have a third pitch, and a changeup. Your arm typically pronates exactly like your fastball. It's a much safer pitch to learn at an earlier age. Um, and then when you get really good with your changeup, what's funny is you eventually get to an age where like the best hitters are saying like, throw me your breaking ball, just please don't throw me that changeup. Because changeups, they spin like a fastball, they look like one, they're just so difficult. So I think it's a great question. If I had the answer, I'd probably be rich. But I think that the key is just treat every pitcher uniquely. And if you believe that you're really knowledgeable and you believe that what's best for a kid, then when you really know in your gut that hey, this kid, we're at a place where it's safe for him to start learning it, then go for it. I think some people like to put an age. I hear a lot of times like, I don't want my kid throwing a curveball before 13. I get it. Like, I totally get the mindset on that, but sometimes you can say, well, your kid's pretty advanced. He's probably ready to start learning one. And then so like I said, there's no one size fits all. Just make sure that the kid is moving efficiently, that he's not having arm pain, that he's recovering on time, that he's being efficient, that his fastball is efficient. If a kid is spraying his fastball all over the place, I was having a discussion with one of the top pitching coaches in the country just the other day in college, and he was like, I wish people would tell these kids, if you can't throw a fastball for a strike whenever you want, that should be your number one goal, is to learn how to do that, and stop worrying about all the other stuff. You got to be able to throw a fastball for a strike when you got to have a strike. So every kid's different, and I think that's the key, is just keeping that in mind.
No, that's good stuff, Aaron. I love it. Well, guys, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to come back and finish up here on talking some showcase baseball side of things. All right, guys, and we're back. So one of the things, when I was talking with you, Aaron, obviously, hey, what are we going to talk about? And you're talking about your specialties. College placement was a big thing, and just kind of scrolling through some of the Hunter Pence Academy stuff, that you guys are having some showcases, and obviously there, going to be a ton out there this time of year. What what do you see as like a prerequisite for players before they even should worry about attending a showcase, even if it's the best of the best out there?
Yeah. So it's the old adage, you want to be ready for exposure or you get exposed. And some kids, they chase exposure before they're ready. You want to be physical, you want to be athletic, you want to have some talent and some skill level, right? Obviously, and it obviously depends on your age. If you're a 14 or 15-year-old in this new recruiting climate, I don't think showcases are pointless. I think that it's good to get out there, get your name out there, get some metrics, get used to doing these showcases so that you can start to feel comfortable in that environment. But man, college coaches really aren't dipping much below 16U anymore when it comes to what they're looking at. So, I think it's important that you really make the weight room a priority, make nutrition a priority, make your daily habits a priority, because those things are what's going to help you develop physically so that you can showcase, right? You got to be able to run well. You got to be able to throw the ball. You got to be able to hit the ball. You got to be able to field the ball. You've got to be able to, in the showcases that have games, you got to know how to play the game, but I think the biggest thing is when are you ready? I think it's usually pretty obvious. If you're doing well and if you kind of stand out a little bit, when you're playing with your high school team or when you're playing with your travel team, you're probably ready. you know. Private baseball, whether it's a travel organization or showcases, it's a financial commitment. A lot of these showcases now are pretty expensive. And to me, I don't think you should go if you are even, if you don't know whether you should go, you probably shouldn't. If you're out there and, it's pretty obvious, like, hey, as a parent, hey, my son, he seems like he's one of the better athletes out here at practice, or he's one of the better athletes out here at my high school or my travel tournaments or travel team. You're probably ready. you know um you know there's a lot of showcases out there nowadays. There's a lot of there's a lot of Twitter happening out there. And these college coaches are paying attention the best they can. They really are. They don't ignore this stuff. But again, you want to have tools that stand out. You want, it's you want to have that stopping power, if you will. If they're scrolling down all the tweets from this showcase, does your metrics or does your video stand out and make them stop and want to see it and maybe follow you or follow up on who is this kid? So I think that's important. But I also don't think there's anything wrong, if it's within your budget or if it's something that you want to do just for the experience. I also don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think if you don't have a place where you can go get some baseline testing numbers, right? Your laser 60 time, your radar gun exit velocities and arm strength and pitching velocities and that kind of stuff, then they can be very helpful, because even if hey, I might not be a guy that's going to go out there and get a scholarship if I have a good showcase. It also could be helpful for you to go out there and say, okay, so this is where I'm at. This is kind of where I stack up. This is where I'm strong. This is where I'm weak. This is kind of how I stack up against my peers, and then that can also help you with kind of directing your energy when it comes to your development. So I think they can be good. If your purpose of going is to try to get colleges to follow up and call you, then you need to be physically ready. They're not going to follow up and call a kid that doesn't really stand out from the herd. So it depends on your purpose. But if it's recruiting, you got to have the tools to stand out. And especially in this day and age when the high school player's been devalued a little bit at the college level. You need to kind of look like the guys that are on their campus for them to kind of find interest in you.
And Aaron, what would you say for, as many as there are out there, right? From the prospect camps at the colleges with their college camps to all the different kinds of showcases out there. What are some kind of red flags, some things when parents are trying to figure out which ones to go to say, that's, the money grab gets thrown around a lot, but really just, where a guy's not going to be seen. Obviously, let's say he's past the bar of, okay, I'm good enough to be out here to I'm ready for this. What are some kind of things parents and players need to be looking at before they just start, blindly showing up to showcases?
Sure, great question. So I think yeah, if you're a player that's ready, right? Colleges typically, their camps are, not every camp is created equal. You have some that put everything into it and you get an incredible evaluation and they give you a campus tour and facility tour, and boy, they give you a ton of reps to really evaluate you. And then there's some where, they're just kind of whipping guys through to help get the GAs a little bit of cash on the side. It's good to have people that you can trust and pick up the phone, whether it's your travel ball coaches, whether it's your high school coaches that can say, hey, that's worth your time. Hey, that's not. Because there is, the travel industry now is a $17 billion industry across all sports. So a lot of people are trying to get a piece of the pie, and it's easy to get people to, hey, we've got a college showcase this weekend, come give $250, and they might have one like assistant, grad assistant there that's just being paid to stand there with his collared shirt on. And is that worth your time? So there's definitely, there's so many of them. It's hard to just say, hey, do this one or don't. I will say, when it comes to the colleges, though, one of the best ways you can navigate that is to understand camps during dead periods are the best time to go, because they cannot recruit off campus. They can't have contact off campus. And so typically, let's just use like UT as an example right now. If Texas has a camp during a dead period, Coach Schloss is going to be there. Nolan Kane's going to be there. Max Wiener is going to be there. Their whole staff is going to be at this camp because it's literally the only way that they can talk to and recruit players. If you go during an open recruitment period, right, there's only about 5 months, 6 months a year that the recruiting calendar is open, and a couple of those months are when they're playing, so they can hardly get out during those months. So there's only a small window when they can get off campus, recruit, openly talk to players, all that kind of stuff. Most of the time, they're not going to be at a camp on their campus during open recruitment. They're going to be out. They're going to be in Tomball. They're going to be in Georgia. They're going to be in Florida. They're going to be in Arizona. They're going to be where the talent is at. And so you want to kind of avoid those a little bit. Not that all of some of them are okay, but I typically would suggest if recruitment period is open, those are typically not good on college campus camps. But in terms of what I would kind of recommend too, you have, at least in Texas, you have kind of your big three recruiting services, right? You've got Perfect Game, you've got 5 Tool, and you've got Prep Baseball Report. What I tend to try to tell kids is once a year, it's not a bad thing to get in front of all three of them. Just because, do college coaches, believe in player rankings and that kind of stuff? Not really, but it doesn't hurt. And during these dead periods, a lot of time they'll sign onto these sites and kind of surf down the player rankings and just kind of look at guys. And, I'm not going to act like that hasn't gotten our guys looks before. So, it's not a bad idea to get in front of them. Do you need to go to a million of their camps throughout the year? I don't think so, because if you're not going to go on any different, if you're not going to go and throw any different or anything else, what are you really showing them that they haven't already seen? Now, if something happens and, you go to a camp in January, but by July, your velo spiked 7, 8, 9, 10 miles an hour, something crazy, of course, yeah, go show that you're a different guy now. But always good, eyeballs help. The more people you get in front of, I know some of these places like and those types of companies, sometimes people like to give them a hard time, but I will say they create a ton of opportunities for kids, and they create a ton of exposure. And so it's not a bad thing. You don't need to go broke, but it's not a bad thing to get in front of them, once a year, once every 18 months, to just kind of update your metrics on their website and really put yourself in a position to where, hey, you can potentially get some exposure out of it.
And just real quick for, some of the listeners out there, what are those the dead periods, like the recruiting, the windows, the schedule? What's that like?
Yeah, so typically March through July, there's a few weekends that are mixed in there. Father's Day, Omaha, 4th of July. I think there's a dead period late in May. But other than that, usually pretty much from March 1st all the way through. And I think they've extended it out now into the second weekend of August, so that coaches can get out to area code and some of these All-American games within a window. And then it'll usually kick back up, usually first, second weekend of September, and run through the end of Jupiter, which is the second weekend in October. And then it's dead from about mid-October. You have there's other periods, but basically they can't, if it's not an open recruiting, they can't recruit off campus. So from about mid-October through the beginning of March is all basically dead. And so and let me preface that that's for Division I baseball, right? Junior colleges, Division II, Division III, their calendars are far different. And in junior college, there is no calendar. They can recruit 365 days a year. So, and talking about, this is all Division I, right? All the other levels of college baseball can recruit mostly throughout the year, right? And so, that is a little bit different. You can see these junior college and D2, D3, and AIA. Those recruiters, you can see them at any time throughout the year.
No, that's good stuff there, Aaron. And last one coming to mind, I was scrolling back on your page. Seemed like you guys are doing stuff with the virtual combine. And then when you mentioned coaches are scrolling through like the kind of highlight reels from, PG and different tournaments to see who pops up, what have you. It reminds me of Gary Vanderchuk, and he's talking about, go where the attention's at, go where the eyeballs are at. And, when people hear, oh, you want to get a college coach's attention, they're automatically thinking of, him being out at a game. But his eyeballs, their attention, where they're looking is a lot of places. Obviously, Twitter is a big one. Are there any other specific kind of online sites or things like that players or parents should start to look at to try to get these coaches' attention? Obviously, there's direct emails sent to the
Right.
coaches, but they're probably getting a minimum 50 to 100 a day, I'd imagine, especially at the bigger programs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. So yeah, you're right. The email and the coaches. I mean, look, I'm not. That can work, but you know, Nolan Kane over at Texas, the recruiting coordinator there. You can probably imagine that his .edu email is probably getting 100 to 200 emails a day, if not more. It's hard. Not to say that he doesn't, and not to say that he won't. It's just you're kind of throwing that email into a pool of emails and hoping that it gets opened. Um, Twitter is absolutely one of the most important resources in recruiting. Um, I always say Facebook is for the parents, Instagram is for the kids, and Twitter are for the coaches. So when you're using social media, which you should, if you're a player looking to get exposure, college coaches are just like all the rest of us. They're on social media. They're on Twitter. A lot of them are on other social platforms. But they're all on Twitter because Twitter is a wonderful information resource. You can really use it very well, and it can really help you a ton. Now, I would just make sure you're honest, right? Don't put out a tweet of you throwing a bullpen saying you're throwing 92, and then they show up and you're throwing 85, and they'll never come back to see you again. So you got to be honest, right? Because there can be a lot of misinformation out there. But Twitter's a wonderful resource. Again, kind of circling back to the showcases, that's why I do think it is sometimes important to, get your metrics updated on those main recruiting platforms, just because they will look you up in those places, right? Because a lot of them, but most of those services, with Five Tool and PG and PBR, they, the college coaches get free profiles, and in that they can click on you, and that has your contact information and everything else that they can find you at, along with like how did you perform in their events and everything. So those are also really, really good platforms. Virtual Combine, which we use, is great because we pin it to our social media pages. We send it out to thousands of colleges across the country. And in there, man, you can have everything you want. You can have the virtual combine. It syncs up to Trackmans. It syncs up to Stalker. It syncs up to a lot of these, Dasher, which is a laser system for getting 60s in speed. And it'll just send it straight to your profile on there. It's really cool. You can also get all your academic information, your academic accolades, which, we talk baseball. That stuff is equally important. So you can really, we love Virtual Combine because it's very simple. Coaches don't have to download an app or pay a subscription fee to have it. They can literally just open it up and look at everything they want. They don't have, you can filter it by grades, by positions, by teams. You can, if you're like, hey, I'm looking for a 2026 catcher, you open a Virtual Combine, Hunter Pence page, you click on 2026 catchers, all of our 2026 catchers, boom, they all pop up, right? So you can kind of look into, one coach was like, I was looking at your inventory the other day. But like it's kind of like that where it's like they can kind of check out and see who we've got and if we have anybody that they kind of want to come and look at. So but the virtual combine, I will say, it takes a lot of work on our end, because you have to input a lot of data. You have to keep up with it. It's something that behind the scenes takes up a good amount of our time, but it's very useful, very effective for us. And then, when you're out at showcases, a lot of times coaches will come up to you, hey, do you have a roster? Yeah, I'll hand them a paper one, and then I can also send them, hey, let me just send this to you real quick. Boom, one press of a button, I send them the virtual combine. So not only do they get this team's roster, they get our entire organization. So we like virtual combine. But I think, the biggest thing is like you said, you want to go where the eyeballs are, and at the end of the day, um, showcases, all this kind of stuff are really important. But at the end of the day, if you want to play in college, they need to see you play and they need to see you play well. So being on the right teams, being in the right tournaments, that is also extremely important because, um, at the end of the day, they're not recruiting you to run a 60, they're recruiting you to help them win a baseball game, and so if you can run a 6.360, but if you ain't any good at baseball, it doesn't really ultimately mean a whole lot to them at the end of the day. So the metrics are important, but being a good baseball player is really, really the most important. So, it's kind of like a soup, you have all these different ingredients that can kind of help make it happen. So we kind of tell our guys, if there's an outlet to helping you get a look, don't pass it up, and then, high school baseball is important, extremely important too. I know a lot of travel like to downplay high school ball. Our cat does not look at it that way. We value high school baseball. We never overlap, because that is so important. And then so the opinion of your coach at your high school is extremely important, right? The scouts, they're playing at the same time as you at the college level, so it's hard for them to get to a ton of high school games. But don't fool yourself, they're going to call those guys and they're going to say, hey, how does he practice? How is he in the classroom? Is he getting in trouble in school? How's he, and then obviously how's he performing for you? What's his role with you? So I think you also want to make sure that you're doing a great job in school. You're staying out of trouble. You're practicing hard. You're not lazy, and getting a good opinion of your high school coach, because they're around you a lot. And we practice twice a week, but not every travel organization practices. And a lot of these guys, that's so important. Hey, how do they practice hard? You know what I mean? Does the game mean a lot to them, or are they just kids that just try hard whenever everybody's watching? So there's a million things that can play in, and if it's something you can control, you want to try to do it at an A+ level, because there's no perfect players.
Yeah, no, and when you're talking about the inventory, I'm laughing inside because I'm thinking back to an example I was telling a player recently in a conversation, which was, you basically have to become, you gotta learn sales, because you are basically selling yourself to these coaches on why they should pick you over all the other hundreds of options that they have. And if you're looking at sales, you've got to understand what's your product. You're a piece of inventory in all this marketplace that's out there. What obviously we've talked about, standing out and that side of things, but getting creative with your outreach and how you're doing this. Like some guys, I sent out, 5 emails. I emailed the coach one time. I went to one camp. And it's like, it's just not enough volume to get in front of these guys and to really catch their attention. So what different ways can you do to stand out? And how many emails are you sending? Are you calling the AD and leaving messages? Are you leaving voicemails, sending letters, texts, finding different uh, social media accounts, just any way you can to get in front of these guys and start to look at what everybody else is doing, and how can you go above that? If everybody else is just sending in videos of them throwing in bullpens, how can you send something else out that's different? I mean, I imagine you're probably in a similar boat, as much college placement stuff as you're doing with these guys. Is there any kind of final tips that you have for guys on kind of standing out for get in front of these college coaches?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that a lot of people struggle with is you got to understand that, especially in today's climate, you got to be patient. Uh, has been devalued. There's no other way to put it. With the transfer portal, with all of the, I mean, junior college never went anywhere either. Then and those guys are still very valued. Um, pitching one thing, right? I mean, look, if you can pitch, pitching never goes out of style. It always travels. Half of a college roster are going to be pitchers. So pitchers have it. If you're looking to get to college, the easiest way to get there is on the mound. Um, so if you're a position player, you're going to have to understand that there's going to be a little bit of patience involved here. What I've noticed since the new recruiting rules have kicked over is August 1st of the junior year, when the new contact period has been established, most of the phone calls are going out to pitchers. And it seems like a lot of schools are waiting on hitters. They want to watch them through 16U, through 17U, through high school ball, and then in that last that last summer before your senior year, like this summer for us, it was just a wave of position players getting offers and committing. And so I think for position players, be patient, continue to work on getting strong, continue to work on being more athletic, because that's what they want. You've got to be able to hit if you're a position player. Find a position that you can be good at. And try to be versatile as well, because if you pigeonhole yourself as I can only play first base, that's going to make things harder on you than if you can play, 3 or 4 positions. And then again, I think the other thing too is understand the climate in college baseball now is different. If your dream is to play Oklahoma State, the reality for most, especially non-pitchers in high school, is that you're probably not going to go there straight out of high school. So what can I do to get there? Junior college has always been, in my opinion, the smartest way to go, even before the rules changed. But every level of baseball now is kind of a jumping off point, and we kind of just have to adapt to this mindset that, every non-power 5 is essentially the same as a junior college. If you go to a Division III and put up numbers, you can transfer into a Power 5. If you go to a junior college and put up numbers, you can transfer in. If you go to a mid-major or a lower in Division I, you can use that almost like we've all got of JUCOs, where go there for a couple of years, prove yourself, and then you can get into the portal and go up. And a lot of schools are now mid-majors and low D1s are recruiting that way. Hey, come here. We'll get you on the field right away. You put up numbers, we'll help you get out of here. It's almost like you have mid-majors that are recruiting high school kids now, like junior colleges have forever. So my thing is if you're coming out of high school, find a good fit that's going to give you a decent chance to get on the field early. That's going to develop you. That's going to give you an education, because most of us aren't going to become millionaires playing baseball. Find a place that fits what you're looking to graduate in. And if you've got an idea what you want to do as in your professional life beyond baseball, then look into what schools offer those types of paths. And just understand, if you're blessed with the chance to play beyond high school, no matter what, you're one of 8% of kids that are on a high school field. The numbers have not changed over all the years. It's right around 92% of kids never play past high school. So any opportunity to play past high school is an awesome opportunity. I know we all get caught up watching Omaha on ESPN, and we all dream of that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the path to that, if you go in and you dive into a lot of the rosters at the teams that are there, most of those, not most, but a lot of those kids didn't start at Tennessee or Texas A&M or these types of programs. A lot of them started in JUCO, maybe started at another program, and they worked their way there. So, everybody's path is going to be different. Just if you love the game, don't ever take for granted where you're at that day. I think it's so, we've kind of evolved into a baseball world where everybody is just always thinking about what's next, and it's a little bit short-sighted to think that way, because you never know what's next. But you know that if I'm at a ballpark today, I got today. So Coach Garrido used to always tell kids, "Hey, be where your feet are, man. Don't be worrying about tomorrow. Worry about today. Tomorrow will come tomorrow." And so my advice to these kids, man, just enjoy playing. Your baseball life is so much shorter than the rest of your life. Even if you make it to the major leagues, you know, um, played into his mid 30s, accomplished just about everything you can accomplish. But he's got more of his life to live, not being a baseball player than he will having played. And he's a Major League World Series champ, All-Star, all that. So, you also want to think of it that way, man. Enjoy it. It's fleeting. You get old and fat like me, you miss playing, and you look back on it, and you'd kind of, man, I'd do anything to go back and play another season or something, but so just enjoy it, and be present, and live in that day, live in that moment, play with joy, and things will end up how they're supposed to end up, and if you just play as hard as you can every day and play with passion and enjoy every day, man, you'll end up where you're supposed to be.
No, I love it, Aaron. It's blessing to be on the field, and it's blessing to be chatting with you here today and sharing this wisdom with everybody out there. So greatly appreciate your time today, sir. We
Really.
talked about Instagram for the parents or excuse me, for the players, and Facebook for the parents. You got a great Facebook group, and I'm sure you guys probably have an account there for the players to check out as well. Where can guys go? Where can parents go to kind of stay in the loop with what you have going on?
Oh, I appreciate it. Yeah, so on Facebook, we've got the Texas High School and travel baseball page. We try to keep conversations in there classy and educational. And I mean, we're not going to agree with each other in there all the time. That's what I hope. I mean, I don't have all the answers. I don't think that I ever will. But I think a lot of people, jump in there because they don't, they never played baseball. They don't know this world that their kid is fascinated with. And so we just want to try to, have constructive conversation in there that can give insight, give opinions, give experiences, and kind of help people navigate a little bit more, because it is such a confusing and frustrating place sometimes. It's the best game of all times, but at the same time, it's a tough game, and it's a game that's different for every kid. And so find us in there, and then on Twitter, I don't have a page. I have my own page on Twitter where you can find me at HPAC10. I mean, I kind of post a lot of the same content there, but I'm not in this to get big on social media, man. I'm really, I appreciate people joining the group, and I think we're right at 8,000 members now. But I'm honestly really just, I love baseball. I love growing the game. I love helping young people follow their dreams and learn how to play the game. Baseball gave me so much, so many more life lessons than it gave me dollar bills. I can tell you that. So I want that for every kid. I think sports are an integral part of society. I think that they make people better husbands and wives, and fathers and mothers, and they make people better employees. And so for me, I just, that's our passion over at HP. We do our best. We're still striving to get better all the time. But at the same time, we're not, we win a lot. We win a ton of trophies. We win a lot of tournaments. But for us, that's just a byproduct of just trying to run things the right way, and help kids get recruited. And we run our own race. Let's just say that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Aaron, it's been a pleasure having you on today, sir, and I'm looking forward to kind of keeping up in the loop with what you guys have going on over there.
Thanks, Kyle. I appreciate it, man. It's been fun.
I hope you guys had some great takeaways from this episode. And that's one of the biggest things for me as a coach is creating this type of content. There's already a plethora of information out there as it is. And we're really in an information overload state. We talk about all different kinds of subjects. There's so many different people out there talking about baseball content, this and that. But these episodes, this entire, not only show, but the content that I'm putting out there is meant to be actionable and things that guys can put into practice right away to make an immediate improvement in their game. So one of the things when you're consuming this type of content, don't just be a consumer, be an implementer. Whether you're the player, you're the parent, or the coach, have an action plan, at least one specific thing that you're going to take and put into practice, into your training, into your program, and really start to put it to work. Not just, do it for like a week or a couple of times. It's probably something that has some long-standing practice that needs to be put into play. So try that out. Leave a comment below with any questions that you have, any of your takeaways from this episode today, and also any content topics that you want discussed in future episodes. We'll be looking forward to the next one. We'll talk to you then. Take care.